Hello everyone, my name is SwingPoynt and welcome to Pokemon Unite. Today we're going to be talking about Venusaur here. This is the most requested Pokemon I've had in the comments down below. We're going to talk about Venusaur stats, we're going to talk about his skills, and we're going to talk about some things that you probably wouldn't know about Venusaur unless you watch this video. Alright, so let's just get straight into it here. At level 1 you get 2 skills here. You can be either Seed Bomb or Razor Leaf. So here's Seed Bomb, you just go pop pop. Slap them monkeys with your seed. All it really does is an area of effect damage. And then at level 3 you get your other skill, and here is Razor Leaf, and same concept, no frills, it's just a big old line of damage. So let's go on over to the substitute doll here and get some stats and see how strong these things are at level 15. You'll never have Seed Bomb or Razor Leaf at level 15, but I do like to compare things. So turn you off and then turn you on. So Seed Bomb at level 15 produces 859 damage, which is very terrible for level 15. And then Razor Leaf here is going to produce about, wow, 2,610 damage, which not bad for very first skill that you could pick. Now let's go into some fancier skills here. Right now we currently have Sludge Bomb that was auto-equipped, and let's throw on Solar Beam to go along with that. And then our Unite move is, I believe, called Verdant Anger, and there's some things to teach you about that. And then when Sludge Bomb upgrades, all it does is increase the area that it does damage in. And then when Solar Beam upgrades, all it does is decrease the cooldown, which is usually around 10 seconds, but Solar Beam Plus reduces that cooldown. But now let's talk about the damage numbers on Sludge Bomb and Solar Beam, and we'll also talk about the stats here on good old Venusaur. So Venusaur here is pretty run-of-the-mill when it comes to stats. So the stats here on Venusaur read 6,321 for HP, 174 for defense, and 137 for special defense. Very similar to Pikachu, very similar to Gardevoir. Pretty much what you're getting out of your like squishier offensive type heroes. Now, Cinderace is on the lower end of that with about 5,400 HP, and then Snorlax and Crustle are on the top end of that with about 9,900 HP. So there's quite the range, and Venusaur is sitting in the very typical ranged attacker area. So let's go take a look at Sludge Bomb here. Sludge Bomb is a big old bomb that you can go and spit it all over the place, and it does damage over time, and it will decrease the special defense of whoever you hit. So let's see how much damage it does. Actually, let me go ahead and flip this on over so we can actually see how much damage it does. And then we'll see how much damage it does. So the amount of damage that this skill will do over time throughout the entirety of the skill, in case you're actually able to get that, is about... Yeah, it's not a very strong skill. Oh god, barely does 1,000 damage. Oof. So pretty low, but the reason why you would pick Sludge Bomb does not have really to do with the damage, in my opinion. The reasons why you would pick Sludge Bomb is because 1, it reduces the speed of whoever you hit, which can be really good for setting up your team. 2, if you're playing with a Gengar and you have some synergy with that Gengar, Gengar will be able to get his hexes going based off of a status effect. And being poisoned by Sludge Bomb is a status effect, so this can help Gengar in case he misses his Sludge Bomb. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the damage that Solar Beam does, and then we'll go ahead and retest that with Sludge Bomb, okay? Now, in terms of Solar Beam here, what Solar Beam does is it gives you a really long range attack, and let me tell you, it does a lot of damage. This is probably one of the highest damage skills in the game, let alone Ultimate. One of the highest damage skills in the game. It's close to like how much Charizard's ult does. It's ridiculous. So 3, 2, 1, sorry buddy. 7,790 damage, which is a lot of damage. But now you see it comes with some compromises. You have to wait for it to charge up for a second, and if you're playing against somebody who knows how to play against Venusaur, they'll see that and they'll dodge out of the way. So you kind of want to set up your attack. Like if you see Substitute Doll running this way, you'd kind of want to like aim in front of him a little bit so that he gets hit by it. And now you might be noticing something here. You see how my aim is shooting out forward like that? Well, let me show you something in your settings that you can do to make that happen. So if you go to your settings and then go to, I believe, controls, there's an option here that will say camera follows moves. So it's defaulted to off, and now you see how you can't really see the end of the scale or anything like that? Well, if you turn camera follows moves on, then you can make it so that you can see where the end of your skills go, which is really, really nice for something like Solar Beam. It kind of lets you scout out in front of you. And then in the case of like a Zapdos, it lets you be right on the edge of where you'd want to be to snipe Zapdos. So pretty nice to have. And we'll take a look at how much damage Solar Beam does to Zapdos. So you can kind of think in your head of, oh, okay, when he has about this much health left, that's when I can go ahead and try to get Solar Beam going. And then speaking of Zapdos, let's go ahead and take a look how much damage Solar Beam does the old Zapdos here. So here's our bird that ruins everyone's life in this game. And with a good old Solar Beam, you're doing about that much damage. So it's a pretty decent chunk. So when he's getting pretty low, your opportunity to snipe Zapdos would be with that amount of health left. And you can do it from pretty far away. Now, I guess a pro tip with sniping Zapdos is a lot of times people will try to do it over here. And the enemy's expecting you to come through here. So what I would do is I would try to come from the top here. And then you can hit him from like pretty much all the way over here. And whoop, bam! And then try to get that snipe in. So now let's see how much Sludge Bomb reduces the special defense. We cannot do that when we're testing over on a substitute doll because they don't lose defense. So it's really hard to test these things on them. So let's go ahead and get a baseline here on our Venusaur here. And I'm seeing about 512 damage. Yeah, 512. That's the number we're going to pick on here. So let's respawn our Venusaur here and then hit him with a Sludge Bomb and see what that number climbs up to. So now we're going to hit him with Sludge Bomb here, and I'm seeing 547. Yeah, so that 512 went to a 547, and then the amount of damage increase that Sludge Bomb gives you there is about 7%-ish. So it's okay. It's okay. I feel like we're going to go take a look at the other skills that Venusaur has and be like, really? Sludge Bomb, in my opinion, based off of what we did our testing with here, is one of those things that does better in team play. That's what I'm noticing a lot in my testing, is some of these skills just kind of bleh on their own. But if you can imagine playing with a teammate who also understands Venusaur, that's where you get a lot of the benefit. So if you're playing with a teammate and they understand that when you Sludge Bomb, that the enemy is going to move way slower and that they're going to take more damage from special attacks, that's when you would see your teammate dive in a little bit and try to take advantage of that. So that's kind of where I feel with Sludge Bomb right now. I think Giga Drain is going to be a much more useful skill more often, and we'll get into that shortly, but we have to go ahead and make sure we do something right here before we get off of the Solar Beam train. Here, hit me up. There is something extremely awesome. Oh god. There's something extremely awesome about Venusaur here. This is definitely the most powerful thing about him, and I don't see people utilize it enough, is that Venusaur's passive skill allows Venusaur to do more damage. And it's a lot more damage. It's really good at melting people. So we're pretty low on health right now. So just try to imagine this is about as low as health as you're going to get before somebody one-taps you. So remember, 7,790 damage with Solar Beam. Well, now it does 9,340 damage. Which is a huge upgrade to damage percentage-wise. Here, let's do the math. So 9,340. And then divided by 7,790. That's about a 20% damage buff when you're pretty much at the end of how much damage you're going to be able to take. Because again, in that situation, you take one more hit, you're going down. So about 20% is how much of a damage buff you could get if you're really just trickling along with almost dead Venusaur. Now, because of that, that's where you want to go ahead and try to use items that will help keep Venusaur alive at low health. And we'll talk about that later. But that's easily one of the best things about Venusaur is that he can do nutty damage, and then he can do even nuttier damage when he is in low health. So what I do when I play Venusaur is a lot of times people get a little greedy when they see a low health squishy character. Well, take advantage of that. You can blast him with Solar Beam, just typically, and then you can blast them even harder when the health is low. I've had a lot of Zeros try to chase me down, and then they just fall over and die because they don't realize how much more damage Venusaur is about to do to them. And now before we move on to the other two attacks that Venusaur can have, which will be Giga Drain and Petal Dance, we have to talk about his basic attack. Because his basic attack is very strong. So let's just hit him with a regular hit here. Bam, 293. Pretty typical. Nothing too amazing out of that. Like Gardevoir is hitting like 334s on their regular attacks. 293 I think is about what Mr. Mime hits, but it's all about that boosted special attack that he gets, or that boosted basic attack. So the third attack here, take a close look at it. 293, 293, and then 839. But not only did it go up to 839, it went up to 839 twice. Each one of those whips counts as some damage. So wha-bam, and then wha-bam, and then bah! And it has huge range, and it does incredible damage. Not only does it do that, it lines enemies up. So what I mean by that is that you go ba-bam, ba-bam, and then those whips, they collapse enemies in together into a straight line. And I'm not sure if you remember, but there's also this other thing that Venusaur does that's like a really strong straight line. So let's go over here and show you what I mean with the bees. So the bees here, they're a nice little clump that we can try to get into a straight line. So wha-bam, wha-bam. Oh, you see how he puts them into a straight line? And then he just murders them? And screw this monkey, I guess. I didn't mean to hit the monkey, but you can collapse them into a straight line and then bam! Or just keep killing other things with your laser, whatever. You get the point. Now, on the topic of basic attacks, before we go and finish that, is let's go look at the range here. You're such a big frog. So we stand in the middle here, and then we try to compare it to like a Pikachu. And it has about okay. It has okay range. It's very similar to like Gardevoir, I think. Pikachu definitely has one of the longest range basic attacks. And the Venusaur is sitting in the realm of average. Something to keep in mind, I think I've mentioned it in videos before, is you see that little notch that shows up underneath my health bar? That is my attack gauge. You can see when your next attack is going to be your special attack. So it goes white, green, special. Now you can turn that on in the settings, and that is into controls, and then boosted attack gauge. I recommend turning that on, not only so you can see your own basic attacks, but so you can see Garchomp. So Garchomp lives and dies off of his attack gauge, and for some reason the game lets you see Garchomp's boosted attack gauge. So knowing if Garchomp's about to start eating you and your family is a pretty helpful thing when you're playing this game. So now let's test Giga Drain and Petal Dance. So Giga Drain is a skill where when you use it, you take less damage, and then you also heal, and it also does damage. So let's take a look at all those things happening at the same time. So the amount of damage that it does at level 15 is 1,383. Not terrible, because it's a big wide cone of effect, right? And I'm healing for about 576. Now, Giga Drain Plus is supposed to provide you with more healing. I've had trouble reproducing that sometimes, but let's see. So, yeah, it doesn't get any better. So I don't really know what makes that go up or down. I've tried raising my special attack, didn't really seem to help it. Definitely doesn't seem to work on the old dolls over here. So I don't really know what the deal is with that. Here, let's see if it makes a difference based on what I hit. So regular Giga Drain, we're gonna hit you. Yeah, 576. Doesn't really seem to change. But now what if it's like against an enemy Pokemon? Maybe that is the difference maker. 576. And then if I go and I am using Giga Drain Plus, still 576. So it's supposed to heal you for more. Doesn't really seem like it does. Anywho, some cool things to know about Giga Drain, outside of the fact that it heals you and reduces your damage and yada yada yada, is that it will heal per target hit. So keep that in mind if you're attacking something. If you need to heal a bunch, well, these bees are pretty good for it. Look at all that health you just got back. Disgusting! You get a ton of health back if you hit a bunch of targets all at once. So use that strategically when you're trying to get your hits in here. And then the amount of damage that it decreases, from my testing that I did before, it's about 25%. And we can go ahead and verify that in front of you guys. So hit me up here, buddy. 117, 117, 117, 100, oh, 120. Oh, wow, a little bit of range there. Why are you hitting me for 120 suddenly? Huh? Anywho, let's go ahead and use Giga Drain here and see it drop. Goes down to 90, so about 25%. All right. So since you lose about 25% of your damage when you're hitting Venusaur and they just hit you with Giga Drain, that's a good opportunity to go ahead and perhaps use something like the Petal Dance. So let's go see how much damage Petal Dance does and explain how it works. So Petal Dance is just a big old circle of death that circulates around your Venusaur. Petal Dance Plus just gives you more range, so we don't have to talk too much about it. You just get a bigger circle. And the amount of damage that it does is about 2,256, which is okay. It's not amazing. And especially since it takes so long for it to happen. Now, the way I've seen Petal Dance used effectively is there's some other things going on with it other than just the damage that it does. So not only does it do damage over time, you also move faster. I'm a fast little frog. Look at me go. So that makes it good for chasing enemies down. Like if they're trying to get away and you just want to finish them, you're doing damage over the top of them. Another really good way to use it is if you are sitting on point and you're trying to defend. So keep in mind, let's say Gengar's on top of you or you got like 2 or 3 of them on top of you. You can Giga Drain, get a bunch of health in, suddenly you're taking less damage, and then you're Petal Dancing over the top of them, and then you're also healing and getting shields from the point here. There's a bunch of things you can do to go ahead and try to really milk your Petal Dance. It is not anywhere near as powerful as Solar Beam in terms of raw damage, but it can be used strategically. Personally, I always pick Solar Beam, but I have seen some people use Petal Dance effectively. My biggest gripe with Petal Dance is it's kind of close range, and you really have to get yourself in there to get the max effects of it. And that would be fine if Venusaur didn't have low health. Again, at level 15, Venusaur has around 6,300 health, which is like Pikachu. And you know Pikachu doesn't have a lot of health. Gardevoir doesn't have a lot of health. So to have something you have to run in at someone makes it a little tough to use. Now, the saving grace of Petal Dance is that you do more damage as you lose HP on Venusaur. So that can make it a little bit more effective. Let me tell you, you're not sniping Zapdos if you're just like doing this. You're just standing there getting eaten by Zapdos. So finally, let's move on to our Unite move here. I believe it's called Verdant Anger. And it's a pretty nice Unite move, IMO. So the way it works is you shoot out a big old seed and it makes a bunch of little seeds. Here, go take a look. Now, that's a lot of area of effect damage. Well, let's see how much damage that is. So the center hit here is about 2,020 damage. Now, each one of those extra seeds provides a different amount of damage. So the little seeds do about 1,017 damage. But I'd say it's plausible that you could hit the center and then also one of the extra seeds, especially if the Pokemon that you're trying to hit is running around. So it's kind of hard to do with the old doll here, but I definitely think you could hit, you know, the center. Yeah, you could hit the center and then also a extra seed. Now, something you might be noticing is, oh, hey, somebody followed. Welcome in. We stream every single night, twitch.tv/SwingPoynt. Go ahead, follow over there if you want to see some more Pokemon Unite or whatever games we cover. Anyway, so if you're paying attention closely here, you can see where those extra seeds are going to drop. You see the 4 little notches on the edges of the circle? Each one of those areas is a seed. So look very closely here, and you'll see how that all lines up. See? You can be very precise with where your extra seeds are going to drop if you so care to do so. And with Venusaur's Unite move here, it's just a really good area of effect attack. It does a pretty decent amount of damage, and it hits it over a really big, wide area, so you're guaranteed to get something going on for it. Also, it pairs really well with the Energy Amplifier because the Energy Amplifier increases the amount of damage that you do after you use your Unite move, and your Unite move is included in that. The problem with Energy Amplifier is that period of time only lasts like 3 seconds. So, the reason why Venusaur is really good with it is because it happens so fast. It's over. Boom! It's not an ultimate where you sit there and you can fly around and use it like Charizard. It's not an ultimate where you kind of have to pick your target, or, you know, you have to line it up. It is you use it and it's done. So you can pretty much get a 21% damage boost easily with a level 20 energy amplifier. So now my tips on how to play Venusaur. Venusaur is a ranged attacker, so you should play them that way. Unless you're going to be a crazy Petal dancer, try to stay in the back line. And also, keep in mind, that passive of yours is very strong. You get extra damage if your health is low. So you don't always have to be healing. If you want to run Risky Bisky for a little bit and just try to play the back line and then keep lower health, you can get an extra damage output that can really make a difference in your game. Like, look at how far back I can sit. I can literally sit in my own zone and just demolish these bees over here, or, you know, any other enemy Pokemon. If you're sitting right here, you can hit him in the grass. If you're sitting right here, you can hit him in this grass. Heck, if you're sitting in this grass, you can hit him in this grass. There's a lot of different areas where you can hit stuff. If you're trying to get Dreadnought, you can snipe him from a distance. Use your range. And since you have such awesome range, you can get away with having a little bit lower health on Venusaur. But speaking of the lower health stuff, let's go ahead and go into the items and see how we can complement what Venusaur is already good at. So over to the items. Battle prep, held items, and move on to Venusaur here. So Venusaur is a special attack character, so special attack items would make sense. I say that pretty much every video because we've just been doing special attack characters. So special attack items that would do really well would include something like the Wise Glasses or maybe the special attack specs. Again, every single time you turn in, it increases the damage of the specs. It doesn't matter if you turn in 50 energy or 1 energy. Oh, also on that note, every time you turn in energy, you get 10% of your Unite move charged. So pretty nice way to charge up your Unite move very quickly. You also get 4% of your Unite move charged up every single time you take out a wild Pokemon. And that could be Zapdos, or that could be a 2 energy Apom. So keep that in mind if you're trying to charge up Venusaur's really strong ultimate move. But anyway, special attack specs for the damage if you're going damage. Other things I think are worth talking about on Venusaur is we already mentioned the energy amplifier. That works really well on Venusaur because his ultimate is, you know, done before that 3 seconds is over. Because again, energy amplifier only works for like 3 to 4 seconds. A little disappointing. At least with Venusaur, you already get all your damage in before that time has elapsed. But now something I would suggest with Venusaur. Since Venusaur is good at performing with low HP, gets a big damage boost, I would consider thinking about the Focus Band. Because on that way you can get that lower health and then also get that little bit of sustain that might give you just enough time to get a really strong Solar Beam out. Frogger Boy here does really, really well with the Focus Band. So I would go like Focus Band and then maybe Wise Glasses and then really, you know, pick your poison. I think Buddy Barrier is a good pick on pretty much any Pokemon if you just want to have yourself a little bit more shields for you and your teammates. But again, you got to match your play style here. So maybe going special attack specs for more damage would do good for you. Or maybe doing something like the energy amplifier would do good for you if you really want to go ahead and slam him with that Unite move that he has. One other thing to note is that the scope lens is kind of like the scam lens. We did some testing on stream and the scope lens does nothing. It literally does 0 things. The only thing it does is it's passive. So the critical hit rate and the critical hit damage. The item itself though doesn't provide any bonus. I don't know if it was just a glitch or what was going on, but typically when you have an item here, like, I don't know, the Float Stone, it'll increase your movement speed by 15% when you're not in combat, but then it also does these other things. In the case of the scam lens here, it doesn't do anything other than the passive stuff. So I think at like level 30 it's good, but that's quite the task to get that thing up to level 30. So, just a side note. Couple of final things here. We stream every single night, twitch.tv/SwingPoynt. I'd love to see you guys over there. Link will be in the comments down below, in the description down below. We've been doing viewer games. We've been covering Unite. We cover other games. I'm really excited for Back 4 Blood if you guys are into that. If there's any other Pokemon you'd like me to cover, please let me know in the comments down below. I've been having a lot of fun with these in-depth guides. We also have a Mr. Mime guide, we have a Gardevoir guide, and we also have just a general advanced tips guide for Pokemon Unite. If you enjoyed this and you'd like to see more in-depth stuff that helps you understand your characters better, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to me. It helps out the channel, helps you get better at the game. It's a win-win-win for everyone. So thank you guys for being here. You guys are awesome, and then I'll see you in the next video that we do around here.